welcome you to the first lecture of Introduction to Dairy Technology. I had the luxury and experience of teaching Introduction to Dairy Technology previously, so we would be going through some of the cream content which I have recovered over this period of time. So we would be going in this lecture firstly on the definition of milk, how it is defined, then what animals are mainly responsible for producing the different sorts of milk, what the compositional criteria is among those milk sources from different animals, and lastly, what the global statistics are, which country contributes to what proportion in the dairy industry. So let's give it a go. And on slide number 1, I'll explain what is milk. When you try to understand how will you define the milk, milk will be a pure, clean, lacteal secretion. What is lacteal? Lacteal are basically the lymphatic capillary system which is present in the villi of small intestine, right? And their primary purpose is to absorb the dietary fat. So this word is explained a bit better. Lacteal secretion, it means something that is produced in the villi of the small intestine, as it is a lacteal secretion. So milk is pure, clean, lacteal secretion which is practically free from colostrum. Now what is colostrum? Colostrum means milk which is obtained 4 days before or 5 days after the parturition or the birth of the baby, the cow's baby, right? That milk is known as colostrum. So the milk you are selling to the dairy industry should be and must be free from colostrum. Colostrum milk cannot be sold. And continuing ahead with the definition, it is obtained by milking one or more healthy cows. Now, healthy cows is another important term here. It's the key word because the milk from the cow which is suffering from any sort of disease like mastitis and other, which we will go into the details, that milk cannot be part of the milk sold to the industries or used for the consumptions. Now, it should contain not less than 8.25% solid not fat and not less than 3.25% milk fat content. Generally, when anybody has written down that it is the normal definition of milk, it should contain not less than 3.25% milk fat and 8.25% solid not fat. So here we go. We have the full definition of milk. It is clean, pure, lacteal secretion, practically free from colostrum, obtained by milking one or more healthy cows, which contain no less than 8.25% solid not fat and no less than 3.25% milk fat content. Yeah. Now, which animals we are getting the milk from? Okay, so why do we use specific animals? For example, cows, we got goats, we got sheep. Why are we using these animals only? Because 6,000 years ago, when milk production actually started, we had untamed animals which we were using for our own purposes, right? We wanted to use them for milk, we wanted to use them for meat, their hide for the clothing purposes, to protect ourselves from different wintry weathers, right? So at that time, we started domestication of the animals which were not that hard to be domesticated. Herbivore animals were chosen mainly because they were easier to handle as compared to the carnivorous animals, right? And they were used then to directly fulfill the man's need for nourishment, etc. Right? So when did the domestication of each individual animal started? Goats started being domesticated in 10,000 BC in Iran, as per the records show. Sheep 9,000 to 11,000 BC in the southwest side of the Asia, and then cows 8,000 BC from Indian, Mid-Eastern and Sub-Saharan African side. Okay, so what animals produce milk? What are their attributes? What classes do they belong to? What are their attributes? Some of the important characteristics. They are mainly mammals, warm-blooded vertebrate animals belonging to the class Mammalia, including all that possess hair and suckle their young ones. It includes 3 major groups: placentals, marsupials, and monotremenes, which includes echidna and platypus, right? These are the basic characteristics of mammals which we have studied beforehand. Okay, now going on to the next slide, we have some of the topmost commercially milk-producing mammals list. We got cows, goats, sheep, water buffalo, yaks, camels, and horses in certain areas. How they are distinguished? Because they are ruminants, as they have 4 compartments based stomach, which is effective not only for the fermentation but also digestion of the food in their stomach. As we all know, the foliage or the grass they consume, it's hard to get digested. Let's shed a bit of light on it. Okay, so these 4 chambers of the stomach distinguish the ruminants from the non-ruminants. What are these 4 parts? These 4 parts are rumen, reticulum, omasum, and obomasum. When you focus on their functions, rumen is the first one, which is primary site for the microbial fermentation. All sort of fermentation from the microbe source happens in the rumen firsthand. Then the food goes next to reticulum, the third section, omasum, which receives the chewed cud and absorbs the different volatile fatty acids from the food constituents. And lastly, the food proceeds to obomasum, which is the true stomach for breaking down the food in other separate sections of the food like other normal animals, right? So I hope it clears the concept about why the ruminants are different, what the 4 sections of their stomach are named as, and what's the function of the 4 different sections of the chamber of the stomach. So it goes like the mouth, then the esophagus, then the 4 compartment based stomach, and then small intestine, large intestine, and then finally the excretory content is removed out of their body system. Now, continuing on to the different milk sources, we now already know that these animals are primarily responsible for contributing to the dairy industry. Now, what are the different constituents present inside the milk obtained from all of these sources? Here is a table which is directly attached from the book. It explains the composition of the milk from different sources. If you take a look, we got different constituents present inside. The protein content, the casein, which is the main protein inside. Protein is basically composed of two main constituents, casein and the whey protein inside. Okay, then we have fat, we got carbohydrates, we got ash, some mineral constituents are present in the ash proportion. Okay, so if you take a look, this table will actually give you the average of what's present inside each milk source, from human to horse to cow, buffalo, goat, sheep. Human milk is given here so you can have a comparative analysis of what proportion is found to the maximum concentration in which sort of mammal. Yeah, so the composition is, however, further influenced by 3 main factors. It can be affected by the breed which we are using, by the feeding which is being given to the animal, and lastly, what climatic conditions are there for the animal. According to that, these proportions will definitely vary. So this is an average. If you take a look at the protein proportion, the percentage of the main total protein, not focusing on casein and whey protein right now, so protein proportion is highest in sheep, 5.8%, while it's reported lowest in the humans, 1.2%. When you further break down the protein into 2 portions, casein and whey protein, in the casein, highest is again found in sheep, of course, because the protein content was already highest here beforehand. Now lowest again in the human. In the whey proportion, that is quite a similarity. Goat and sheep, horse have similar whey content. Similarly, cow and human also have similar whey protein percentage in their milk. Now focusing on the second major constituent into the milk, we go fat. Fat is again highest in sheep, second highest in buffalo, and the lowest in horse milk, right? Following ahead, Carbohydrates, we will go into the details of what protein, how their structures are, how the fats look like, what their functions are in the later compositional part of the chapter, okay? So no need to worry about it. Let's just have an overview of what the proportions are. Carbohydrates are reportedly highest in the human milk, then followed by horse, then followed by 4.8 in cow and buffalo, then goat, and lastly in sheep. So there is an inverse proportion between the presence of protein and carbs, right? Ash is also similarly highest in goat and in sheep, followed by buffalo and cow, and lastly in the human milk. Okay, so this is how the composition is distributed among the different sources of the milk, which is an average right now because these are further influenced by 3 factors which are given on the side: breed, feeding, and the climatic conditions they are facing, right? Now proceeding ahead with the last slide for this lecture, what do we have? We have the statistics, the global statistics. Worldwide, if you take a look, the global market actually constitutes on 216 metric tons in terms of volume of the dairy market annually, right? In this market share, there are different products of milk. You're already familiar with it. We have milk, we have proteins, we got yogurt, we got butter, we got concentrated milk, some other sort of, there is a variety which we will go into details in the later sections, but just to give you an idea about the liquid milk share content, that is 54% of the total market. Now, having a look at this pie chart over here, it will explain what percentage of each section is being contributed. Or, okay, take a look at the Europe first, which is highest. Yeah, EU contributes approximately 40% of the total milk composition. Milk section is contributed or mainly aligned. 40% in the European section, followed by Oceania, that is the Australia sections, right? Australia, New Zealand, these countries. Then we have North America, 10%, other sections of the Europe, 9%, America, including the South and the Caribbean section, that has it also in the red, so a little less than 10%, yeah, and Asia has 7% of its main contributions. Other sections which are not really defined, they have something more than 9 to 11 sections, 11%, which is just giving you an average idea of how the global market is global dairy market is distributed among different sections of the world. This figure has been taken from Statista, so you can have a look, go into the detail about what the content is, how they're distributed, how further markets classification is being carried out on your site. Yeah, so this is it from lecture number 1. I think you have a better idea of what market share is, which countries are mainly responsible to contribute in the contribution of this dairy industry, what the composition are, what are ruminants, how milk is defined, and how and which animals were basically domesticated to start and initiate this market worldwide. I wish you all the best, and I'll see you in lecture number 2. Have a great day. Assalamu alaikum.